Today we will be multiplying decimals with an algorithm. Multiplying the digits as usual, ignoring the decimal points. There's no need to line up the decimal if you are setting it up vertically. The product will have the same number of digits to the right of the decimal as the multiplicand and multiplier combined. So the first thing we're going to do here is determine how many digits will be behind the decimal in the solution. We're not going to solve it, we're just going to count and see how many decimals we will need. So if you look at number 1, behind the decimal, there is only one number. That is our 7. So we will need one number behind our decimal. Number 2, we're going to count the numbers behind our decimals. We have 1.58 times 0.23. So we have 5 and 8 behind our decimal here. So that's 2 numbers. And then we have 2 and 3 behind this decimal. And that's another 2 numbers. So total, we will have 4 numbers behind our decimal. Looking at number 3, we have 0.7 times 432. There are no decimals in 432, but in 0.07, we have 0 and 7 behind the decimal. That is 2 numbers, so we will need 2 numbers in this solution. When looking at number 4, we are going to count the numbers behind our decimal. We have 0.9 times 8.55. There are 3 numbers behind the decimals altogether, so we will have 3 numbers behind our decimal in the solution. So the next thing we want to do is we want to use estimation to check for reasonableness. In problem number 5, we are going to round each decimal to the nearest whole number in order to estimate a solution. So number 5 says 1.9 times 6. As you can see, we've estimated 1.9 to be about 2, and we left 6 as it is, and so 2 times 6 would be 12. So when multiplying 1.9 times 6, our answer should be about 12. In number 6, we are going to estimate 0.94 to be about 1. Our 9 would raise it up to 1, and we would drop the 9 and 4. Then we have 1 times 5. So our answer should be around 5. In number 7, we are going to estimate 5.7 to about 6, and we have 6 times 11. Our answer should be about 66. And now we're going to practice multiplying using the algorithm. So in number 8, I have 6.8 times 3. The first thing I want to do is look at my numbers and figure out how many numbers I'm going to need after the decimal in my solution. So in 6.8 times 3, I have 1 number after this decimal. 3 has no decimal, so I'm only going to need 1 number after my decimal. So I have 6.8 times 3. And remember, when you multiply decimals, you do not have to line the decimals up. So I know that 8 times 3 is 24. 4 goes here. I'm going to carry my 2. And 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20. So 6.8 times 3 is 20.4. And I know that I need 1 number behind my decimal, so I'm going to count 1 number from the right, and that is my 4. So my decimal will go between my 20 and my 4. And my answer is 20.4. Now I'm going to work on number 9, and the first step is always to count how many numbers I will need after my decimal place in my solution. So in the number 15, there are no decimals in the number 15, but in 0.7, I have 1 number behind my decimal. That means I'm going to need one number behind the decimal in my solution. So 15 times 0.7. Remember, you do not have to line up the decimals when you multiply. And now I can multiply just like normal. 5 times 7 is 35. My 5 goes here. I'm going to carry my 3. 7 times 1 is 7. Plus 3 is 10. And remember, we said we needed one number behind our decimal. So counting from the right, I'm going to count one number over. And that is between the 0 and the 5. So my answer is 10.5. All right, boys and girls, now we're going to do number 10. So the first thing I'm going to do is count how many numbers I will need after my decimal. And in 0.41 times 5, there are 2 numbers behind my decimal place. So I know that I will need 2 numbers behind the decimal place in my solution. So I'm going to set it up, and remember, I do not have to line up the decimals when I multiply. So I have 5 times 1, that is 5, and 5 times 4 is 20. Now I'm going to count 2 numbers from the right and put my decimal between the 0 and the 2 for 2.05. All right, now I'm going to do number 11. So I'm going to set it up like normal, remembering that I do not have to line up my decimals when I multiply. So I have 20.8 times 9. So 20.8, there's one number behind my decimal. So I know that I'm going to need one number behind my decimal in my solution. So 9 times 8 is 72. I'm going to carry my 7. 9 times 0 is 0, plus 7 is 7. 9 times 2 is 18. And now I know that I need one number behind my decimal. So from the right, I'm going to count one space, and I know that that leaves my decimal between the number 7 and the number 2 for the answer of 187.2. All right, now please go ahead and do number 12 and number 13 on your own, remembering to count your decimal places and that you do not have to line up your decimals when you multiply.